This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. I've been asked recently about draining pools and how to convince customers to drain them. When do I suggest draining a pool? Where do I drain the water to? So all of these should be answered in today's podcast. It's going to be all about draining down a backyard pool. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support. For me, I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. I'm going to start with some cautions of when not to drain the pool. I know I'm talking about draining a pool, but it's a good idea to start with when not to drain a pool first. If the air temperature, in my opinion, if the air temperature is anywhere above 90 degrees for an extended period of time, I would not recommend draining the pool at that point. If the plaster is older, there's a chance that it could actually start to chip and crack when the sun's hitting it and baking it if it is in that temperature zone. PebbleTech pools can also crack. I mean, it's a strong surface of river rock, but I've also seen PebbleTech crack from being drained and left empty for a day or two in really hot weather here, like 100 degrees. So it's more durable than plaster, but still the same caution with the PebbleTech pool. Another caution is a vinyl liner pool. You don't want to drain a vinyl liner pool because there's experts out there that know how to weight the liner down so that it doesn't detach from the side of the pool. So if you have an in-ground vinyl liner pool, I would not recommend draining it yourself. Even draining it down a couple of feet could cause the liner to stretch and snap off the side of that in-ground frame that it's in. So don't drain a vinyl liner pool. Only an expert should drain it. The same goes with one of those in-ground drop-in fiberglass pools. If it's a shell-type fiberglass pool and someone drops it in the backyard with a crane, you don't want to drain those either. Now, there's some pool guys that will drain them really fast and they can get away with it, but there may be a slight chance of that shell popping out of the ground because there's really nothing holding it down except the weight of the water once it's in there. And if the water table is high, let's say you've had a lot of rain, 3 or 4 inches of rain that day, and you drain it down and leave it empty, chances are it's going to pop out of the ground. So those are pools that you shouldn't drain. For an above ground vinyl pool, I wouldn't recommend draining it either because the sides of it can collapse and then you basically need to get a new above ground pool at that point. If it's a smaller above ground pool, you could probably drain it safely, just do it slowly, and I think you're okay with that. But if it's a full, 15,000 gallon above ground pool, you have a chance of really damaging that structure of that pool. It's better if you have an expert go out there and do that if you need to drain that down. Back real quick to the hot weather for those pools that are PebbleTech and plaster. You can't drain it in hot weather. It's just a trick. So basically, if you are going to do this, you want to make sure that it's filling up or almost full by the time the sun hits the pool. So there may be some yards where it's shady in the morning until about noon. That's perfectly fine if you can work fast and if you're doing an acid wash or a chlorine wash, or if you're just draining the water, drain it overnight, the next morning start filling it, or even start filling it if you're just draining it and filling it in the evening. That's a possibility as well, or early morning maybe. It wouldn't be quite evening, it'd be like 2 or 3 in the morning in that case. But you just want to avoid having that pool exposed to the direct sun for any length of period of time when the air temperature is 90 degrees or above. Now, I'm being cautious here. I would say a lot of pool pros will say 95 degrees, but it's schematics. I would say anything over 90, you risk the plaster being damaged. What about the risk of pool pop-up? It's a pretty rare occasion. It's something that maybe will never happen in your lifetime. I always refer to this builder in Florida. He built 2,000 pools, and out of those 2,000 pools, he had 2 pools pop out during the construction stage, and that's when they had like 5 inches of rain or 6 inches of rain one day, and that the water table was at a point where that pool actually popped out of the ground. So it has to be really saturated with water. If you're like in Tennessee, where you had like just recently had 10 or 12 inches of rain, you don't want to be draining your pool at that point. The ground is too wet and it could cause the pool to pop out. I mean, they're pretty heavy. If you've seen a pool constructed, you have all of the rebar, then you have the gunite, and then you have the plaster. So it has a lot of weight to it. But when it's empty of water, there's that slight possibility of the pool popping out if the ground is really saturated. You can also cause this by draining the pool into the dirt area around the pool. I've seen this happen. Not anything personal, but I've heard stories of this where they had a 20,000 gallon pool and they drained it just around the dirt where the pool's at. A big problem, because then you saturate the ground with 20,000 gallons of water. And of course, that's going to cause the water table not to be in the correct state, and the pool can pop out if the soil is that moist and that wet. And I'm going to go out on a limb saying that if you're in Los Angeles County like myself, you probably will never see a pool pop out, because we probably never had more than 2 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. I think maybe 3 inches is like the record. Should look it up, but we don't get 5 or 6 or 8 inches of rain in Los Angeles County on any kind of regular basis, or at that, if ever. So that's something that you don't have to worry about. Now, when should you drain the pool? This is a true story here, and it's something that maybe you can reuse, I don't know, but I had a customer that bought this house, and he came out to me one day, like 2 weeks after buying. He's like, "Hey, let me ask you a question." I'm like, "Sure, nice to meet you." We did some small talk, and then he asked me the question, which was, "You think I should drain the pool? Because I don't really want to swim in the water where the previous homeowner swam in. I want the water to be fresh for my family." And my answer immediately was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's drain this pool down. That way you have fresh water and it's just your family swimming in it." Even though I know that, logically looking at it, I can see his point. He just wants everything fresh. I'm sure he probably changed all the toilets out of the house. I don't know. But he just wanted a fresh pool. And at that point, I'm like, if someone wants to drain their pool, I'm going to drain the pool, because it's always the opposite. Asking the customer to drain the pool and getting a lot of pushback. So when he came out and said that he wanted fresh water for his family when he bought the house, I'm like, guess go for it. You may use that if you have someone that just bought a house, and you may just say, "Hey, the pool is due for a drain, and if you want to just have fresh water for your family and you won't have any of the water that the other family swam in, that's a good idea. And maybe you'll get someone to drain their pool. Maybe that'll work in your area." But to me, that was like a shocking thing, and I almost fell over. But I composed myself and actually had a really straight poker face, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." Nothing was showing like, this is great, but basically that's something that you can do in a situation. But in most cases, you're draining the pool for maybe 2 reasons, I would say, or 3 reasons. I'll give you that. One is that there's an algae infestation, black algae, or just algae itself, especially in a PebbleTech pool, where it may be hard to clear it, to a point where it definitely needs a chlorine wash. Not necessarily an acid wash, but a chlorine wash. And then another reason to drain the pool, in that same vein, I'm going to keep these 2 in the same, is for an acid wash. If there's metal stains or discoloration, and you wanted to kind of try to clean the plaster or PebbleTech, then an acid wash definitely would be something that you would want to drain the pool for. And if you have a PebbleTech pool with a lot of calcium buildup, not a bad idea to drain that pool and have a bead blaster. This is the same companies that will clean the tile line of the pool. Have them bead blast the entire surface. It'll be like a brand new PebbleTech pool at that point. So that's number one. If for some reason there's like a lot of algae stains and you want to drain it for that and do a chlorine wash, or you want to do an acid wash, you would definitely drain the pool down for that reason. The second reason that you may want to drain the pool is if the pool water is really old. I'm talking like 10, 15 years old. The TDS level is probably pretty high in there. Now, you get the TDS, or total dissolved solids, with a digital meter, and recommended is to drain it if it's above 2,000 parts per million of the tap water. So how do you get the TDS reading? You'll take a reading of the tap water, you'll take a reading of the pool, and then you'll subtract those numbers. Keep in mind that a saltwater pool will probably have a TDS of 3,500 or 4,000. This is something normal because salt is an element in TDS. So don't be draining saltwater pools down. Don't test the pool and think that, wow, this TDS is at 3,500. I got to drain this thing. Wait a minute, look at the equipment, see if there's a saltwater generator. That'll explain the reason why the salt level is so high, the TDS level is so high. It's the salt in the water, so don't panic if that were to happen. Sometimes you'll have a salt pool that the saltwater generator is not working in. I would consider draining that one down if they don't want to fix the saltwater generator or get a new cell. The TDS levels are pretty high there. So I definitely would do that because high TDS makes the water kind of funky. You'll get sometimes weird staining on stuff. The automatic cleaners will have like this weird kind of brownish stain on there. I've seen that happen. And the water may be cloudy and it may be pretty corrosive too. So keep that in mind, that high TDS is not a good thing and it builds up over time. And so if the pool hasn't been drained in 10 or 15 years, I would guess that if it's a non-saltwater pool, that the TDS level would be pretty high in there. Another reason to drain the pool is if it has really high cyanuric acid in it. I don't know if this is true or not, and I've heard this story, and I don't know, maybe it is. There's really not a good way to prove it. Bob Lowry said what we should do is cut a chunk of the plaster out and test it, but there is some stories that when they drain a pool with high cyanuric acid, let's say it's 300 parts per million, that when they refill it, some of the cyanuric acid comes back out of the plaster itself, and the cyanuric acid is like at 100 parts per million without adding any cyanuric acid. I mean, Bob Lowry said maybe that's possible. Maybe it's in the plumbing or, maybe it's in the filter. Who knows? But, I mean, there's been cases where that's happened, so I can't say that that's not true. But generally, when you drain a pool down because of high cyanuric acid and refill it with fresh water, you're going to have a pretty low cyanuric acid reading. So when the cyanuric acid gets to about 150 or 200 parts per million, I definitely would recommend draining that pool down because even if you were at 200 parts per million and you did a partial drain, which is half the water, you're just down to 100 parts per million. And you might as well start over with fresh water anyway, because it probably hasn't been drained in a long time as well. And so I would drain the pool down. One thing that stops people from draining the pool down is the cost of it. They think that it would be, astronomical to drain down a pool and it's going to cost them a ton of money to refill it. For example, in Los Angeles County, you're looking at maybe about $80 to refill the pool with the water costs. There's probably a little bit of a penalty. Usually you get hit with a penalty for using too much water. So that may make it like $130 or $140 to refill it because of a penalty. I'm not sure how it is anywhere else. Maybe if you're in Phoenix, it's going to be more because water is more expensive. But there's some areas where the water is like really cheap, like Texas. I'm sure it's pretty inexpensive to drain and refill a pool in those states because water is probably one of the cheapest chemicals you can have. So that's what Bob Lowry states, and I buy that. Like if you were to use like the Biodex cyanuric acid reducer and you buy like 4 bags of it to try to lower your cyanuric acid, by the way, it does work, but you have to have almost like lab-like ideal conditions, which is impossible in a backyard pool. But if you were to use like the bioactive, I should say. I think I said Biodex. It's the bioactive cyanuric acid reducer. If you use that, it's like $50 a bag, and so it's like $200 for 4 bags, and it may or may not work. So the bioactive, again, it does work in like a pure lab type environment. It doesn't work as well in a backyard pool. You're going to have mixed results. You might as well just drain the pool and pay that money for fresh water. How to drain the pool down? Well, a submersible pump is the easiest way in the deep end of the pool. I think that's logical. I wouldn't use the system to drain it down. I mean, you could put it on main drain and drain it that way, but I've never really done that. I don't think it's something advisable. And I would just drain it using a submersible pump. They're not super expensive. You can get different horsepower ones. The larger the horsepower, the faster it'll drain. The larger horsepower ones typically you can typically attach a regular swimming pool hose to it, so it's 1.5 inch in diameter. The ones that are lower horsepower, sometimes you can only use a garden hose to drain it. It takes forever, so I would recommend that if you do pool service, of course, get a high horsepower submersible pump where you can connect your swimming pool hose to it. That way you can drain it down very rapidly. you can drain probably a 15,000 gallon pool with a 1.5 horsepower submersible pump, probably in like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours at the most. So keep that in mind that it's a fast process with the right submersible pump. If you have one of those, 1/4 horsepower submersible pumps, it may take a lot longer. So invest in a high horsepower submersible pump to drain the pools rapidly. Now, where do you drain the water to? Well, you certainly can't drain it out to the street in most cities. There may be some rural areas, again, like in Texas, where not a big deal. But here in Los Angeles County, if you were to drain the backyard pool into the street, you would have the fire department searching for you, the city searching for you. Neighbors would be calling, a water leak somewhere. So don't do that. And, just drain it either into a direct sewer line. Typically, there's a clean out line by the kitchen. So find the kitchen window, and typically there's a drain line there. You can put the pool hose in and drain it there. Sometimes they're in odd locations. Like, for instance, my sewer line is in the center of my garage. There's a metal plate in the middle of my garage that I can unscrew, and that's where my sewer line's at. Not the most convenient location, but I do have one, and it's in the middle of the garage. Sometimes if the laundry room is in the garage, you can actually use the washing machine waste line to drain a pool down. Just watch it for the first 10 minutes to make sure that it's not going to back up and flood the garage. But I've had to use that myself when I couldn't find any kind of drain line anywhere or sewer line. I just used the laundry room line, and that's acceptable. You just don't want to drain it to the street because the water is not supposed to go into the storm drain. Here in Los Angeles, the storm drain goes into the ocean, and that's a definite no-no when you're draining a pool down, regardless if the water is clear or not. You just can't drain it directly into the street. So don't do that. Find a sewer line. Don't drain it into the dirt because you could cause the pool to pop up. Don't drain it into the planter or the neighbor's yard because there's a lot of water coming out of that pool, and it'll flood anywhere you drain it to, unless you have like an acre of land and you drain it, 50 feet away. You might be okay. But in most cases, you want to drain it into the dedicated sewer line that's attached to the house. Real quick on refilling the pool, that's the customer's job to do. And depending on the water pressure, it could take anywhere from 10 hours to 20 hours to refill the pool. You don't have the same risk of like a new build where you can't stop the water while it's filling. So you can stop it if they need to. Let's say they have to go somewhere and they don't want to flood the property. It's possible to stop it when it's not completely full. Just remember the heat warning. If you leave part of the pool exposed or the spa's not filled up and the sun comes out and it's like a 95-degree day, then you've defeated the purpose of being cautious and you're going to damage that plaster. I would just tell the customer, go ahead and start filling the pool in the morning, and by sometime in the afternoon or evening, it should be full. And I wouldn't use the autofill for this. It's really slow. Just put a garden hose in there and have them fill it up. And again, it could take anywhere from just as little as 8 hours to even the whole day, depending on the water pressure and the size of the pool. But it's not your job to be there to turn off the water either. You wouldn't be going out there at 2 a.m. and turning off the water. So make sure you're clear that you're draining the pool. Do whatever you need to do, acid wash, chlorine wash, or nothing, just refill it. But the customer is responsible for refilling the pool and not you. And that's basically it. It's not really rocket science, and it's easy to do. You just have to follow these guidelines, and you can drain any pool. And those are the main reasons why you would want to drain the pool, besides the fourth one, which is if you want fresh water for your family and don't want to swim in a pool that the previous owner was swimming in. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can find those by, of course, subscribing to my podcast or YouTube channel, where these are posted Monday through Friday on YouTube. And you can find other podcasts on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts there for you as well. And you can also join my coaching program. To learn more about that, you can go to poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.